Welcome to Procurement Reimagined, a podcast by Gatekeeper. We believe traditional procurement has had its day, the world is changing, and our industry needs to change with it. On the podcast, we share the best practices to help you streamline your procurement processes, navigate vendor onboarding, and ultimately get the most value out of your vendor contracts. I'm your host, Daniel Barnes. Andra Fola, co-founder of Solutionary Minds, joins me on this episode of Procurement Reimagined and shares her insights on navigating procurement in a turbulent and uncertain environment. She shares some common challenges and easy to implement workarounds. Andra also shares how the performance of procurement professionals through the downturn can help them step out of the shadows and gain a seat at the strategic decision-making table. Andra has over 15 years of procurement exposure, and she has held procurement leadership roles at companies like Amazon and Vodafone. Andra, I'm actually deeply curious about your background, actually, because one role that jumped out was you were actually at Amazon for a bit, and that's always intriguing. But yeah, could you just go into a little bit about your career and kind of what you're up to now?
Yeah, I would be happy to. So I think most of us, I've started almost by accident a procurement career. So I started in engineering. I did a lot of logistics at the beginning of my career. So the field was familiar. And then working in operations and maintenance, I ended up negotiating contracts because I became a budget owner. And from there, I grew the love, right, of engaging, solving for problems, finding solutions, having this overview, and so on. So then when the global supply chain organization in Vodafone was set up in 2007, I jumped on the opportunity. I left behind a role where I was very well paid and calmed and with peace of mind. I said, no, that's something that I want to do. So I started in 2007 the formal career in procurement, just in time for the recession. So that was a very very hot entry. And then I evolved big part of my early career in technology. Because I had an engineering background. I'm a computer scientist with a major in finance, so it's something that I understood. So I was always drawn by tech, and it was a world that I could relate to. And then I met fascinating people, right, that knew a lot of things, and I could learn every day. And I'm a curious person, and I love speed and I love new. So it kept me hooked, right? So one side I had the learning and I did technology, always something happening. And the other one, it was that sense of personal contribution. So you can really make a difference. So technology grew traditional as a career path, manager, leader. I became a CPO type of role in Vodafone in Romania. And then I realized that's not the direction that I want. I can do it, it will not make me happy. So then I spinned, I reinvented myself and started to do a lot of things. So I did digital transformation, tactical sourcing, that's long tail program. So again, a transformation program, innovated a ton, built new solutions. I designed Ava in Vodafone, that's an automated sourcing solution. And then because I love this innovation space and because I tried so many things in Vodafone, so somehow I maxed out in what I could do, I went to Amazon for a while and set up the base for their supplier management, supplier relationship, innovation, and then decided it's time for me to go out. So that's long. Was it long? That's my career and what drives me.
Yeah, I kind of it's interesting on the Vodafone piece because they're kind of like early pioneers, aren't they, with that a separate business model for procurement. And you've seen I should say we've seen BT with BT sourced kind of go out and do it, and they've kind of probably pushing what's possible there even further. So no, that's a really really cool intro. Yeah, so very tech focused, a non-traditional background, I guess, as well for a procurement professional. And to your point, you you joined in 2007 really into the profession just as global recessions were starting. I was trying to like I'm just trying to think where I was at that point. I think I was at school, just finishing off school, and it wasn't really it didn't really hit me too much about what was going on. I guess there was a slight child naivety at sort of 14 or 15. I think I was back then. Uh, but you've kind of gone through one recession, and now we're in probably what looks like to be a worse one. So how do we reimagine procurement during a recession period?
Yeah. It's, I think it's valuable learning going through one. I know we can do it. So I have that inner belief that it's not something that is destroying you, but rather can create, especially for procurement, can create opportunities to grow. What I found works is in tough times, you are overwhelmed by a multitude of projects. So everybody suddenly has budget challenges, investment stops, reshuffling strategy. Things become very unclear. You don't know anymore what's very important. So this bubble, and we are in the middle of it because everything that a company invests goes through procurement, right? And everything is reconsidered, it's on the table. What helps is to really ruthlessly prioritize, because it's so much noise. Everybody in the organization, all the functions, being technology, sales, marketing, you name it, HR, they put pressure on procurement to solve a problem, right? So I think prioritizing, and the way I always prioritize is on impact, and ruthless. So I learned to say no in those times. I learned also not to optimize for everything. So in procurement, traditionally, you have an evaluation matrix. So you look at a lot of dimensions. It can be cash, it can be TCO, it can be return of investment, quality, pricing, you name it, right? When you have these complex evaluation processes, it becomes very easily distracted on what's important, and neither your partners, the suppliers that pass through the same problem in their organization, are open to optimize with you for everything. So then it's important to clarify and sign off with a stakeholder what's important in that deal. Is it cash? Is it availability of supply? Is it me first? What is going to make or break that deal for the company? So again, prioritizing on projects and prioritizing on what's important and not everything for everybody. So that I would say from a work perspective, right? So how do you manage your projects? Now, from a personal perspective, you can very quickly burn out and you can very quickly be even more in the shadows. So it's important to have a stakeholder that you engage and knows and becomes your sponsor. So talks on your behalf and makes things happen, right? So that's another dimension that works very well, to have somebody in the organization high enough to influence that you can go and make these hard choices happen, because otherwise you're in a fight with no support. So that's from a stakeholder engagement perspective. And then from a management perspective, I was very lucky. I had a manager in my back in 2008 that didn't stand in my way. No time for micromanagement, no time to question everything. Just gave me the trust and space to run with my projects, and then use him. He was a man as a sounding board, right? So I went when I had a challenge and I needed something to calibrate or get another opinion or something to move. So that worked very well. I think if you have also a controlling manager or on top of everything that's happening, it's impossible to cruise. So that would be my advice for managers: is don't micromanage, just make room for your people. That's what I always advise, especially in these times. So yeah.
Yeah, they're really cool. Really good points. I was just thinking about your point around saying no. I think that's just such a incredible skill, isn't it? To be able to say no to people and do it in a way that doesn't upset them, and kind of, if you're prioritizing the work that's going to have the biggest impact on your business, that suddenly becomes a lot easier to do so.
Correct. And you go back to communication. If you say no without giving a reason, you will get much more reaction and emotional reaction. If you make it more a non-emotional evaluation and say, that's what but you need to be able to communicate that. That's that this is what's on my table. We need to be pragmatic. We have, limitation of resources. I have to pick, otherwise nothing gets done. This is what I'm focusing on. What do you think? Help me. That works. Especially when it is a crisis and it's not your choice, right? It's not something that you have created. It's not a bubble. Everybody understands. People are open. Right? It's a matter of choosing, I think, the right negotiation and positioning and communication. And then it's a lot of work with ourselves. Saying no triggers many of our fears of not being liked, of not advancing, so as long as we recognize that is actually us that we work on first to be able to say no and be firm on it, then we can manage the other part. So, and working with clients now and also with my teams, it's very hard. It's a skill that you grow with a lot of difficulty because it's very emotional.
Yeah, certainly. It's something I've tried practicing over the years, mainly because I heard Tim Ferriss say it repeatedly across his podcast. He's like, I say no to pretty much everything, and then that lets me just focus on what I want to do. But it's easier said than done, especially if you're a very wealthy person who has that opportunity.
For sure.
A bit different in a business environment. One thing that got me thinking with everything you were saying there, in terms of priorities, in terms of what has the most impact in the business, is it good to have some sort of plan in place for a defined period of time, or is it more useful to be, I almost want to say, more agile? Maybe not reactive, because you still be proactive with that way of working, but during a recession, typically things are going to happen that disrupt potentially those plans. So it'd be cool to get your insights there.
I think it's a complex question to a complex situation that deserves a it depends type of answer.
That's fine.
My personal approach in high complexity situations is to have a North Star and hold it, right? That's important. And then keep flexibility and adaptability to experiment, to try, to fail, and react to the market conditions. So yes, having a plan, and that's pretty much how I approach majority of my high complexity project situations in life. I keep direction in mind. I always remind myself, why do I do what I do? What's the purpose of that project, situation, whatever, direction, and then keep adapting to what I see is happening. If you can nail that, it will save you for a lot of, I would say, the worst it can happen, right? Because the worst it can happen is that you are dragged down, you are burned out, you forget why you do what you do, so then you derail a lot from the direction, and you get lost, or you don't do anything because you analyze. Analysis paralysis is truly a reality. If you try to analyze and forecast everything that's happening and plan every step of the way, then again you can end up not knowing how to plan. So that's how I would approach it. That would be, it depends type of situation.
Yeah, I think it's a good answer, right? I appreciate that it was not the easiest of questions, but I think having, like you say, if your business in the first place has a North Star that you're all working to, along the way that some things are going to happen, just even outside of a recession period, right? That are probably going to prevent you in some way of doing it, how you first foresaw it. So yeah, it's a really cool way to look at it. And I know you mentioned analysis paralysis, and it kind of triggered my thoughts there about, during a recession period and trying to get the most out of the actual recession period, but then afterwards, where typically markets open up, they reemerge, people out there buying things. Does data become a good friend of yours to go out and take advantage of when things, hopefully, and they will always, start to look a bit better?
Yeah. Yes. The answer is clearly yes. With the value of data and reliable data, and from now on, for whatever project, business, business cycle, where I think, and this will grow. This is having already a momentum. We will have more and more and more data, more curated, more made sense of, a lot of AI to give us insights, foresights into it, where I think we are not at the speed of data and technology as human is acknowledging our biases and in making sense out of that. And I'm very much focusing in human aspects because that's where my business is going, right? And I don't see the same speed of evolution, us being able to draw the right conclusions and changing our mind in the face of new data and new data points, and removing our biases, because otherwise it's very easy to use data to tell the story that you want to be told. That's what I learned.
That's a really good point. That bias, even if you're not aware of it, is something that I guess can plague every decision, because everything you're doing is going to that view that you potentially hold, whether it's about, it could be quite basic, right? Like it could be a supplier that you don't like, and suddenly every piece of data you get about that supplier, you can engineer to say, hey, they're really not a good fit for us.
Yeah, you exclude data points that would be challenging your own assumptions and expectations. And unfortunately, nobody trains us on it. We don't talk about it in schools. We don't have any sort of mandatory training to understand ourselves and our mind limitation. Our mind has, the way the brain works, has its own limitations, and nothing really prepares. I look at my kids and I look at the trainings that I've done. Very rarely I was exposed to acknowledging bias, and we have that also in gender diversity, any sort of diversity, cultural acceptance. We have a ton of things that we are not aware in our brain that says, this is not my tribe, right? And from here, a lot of problems. So that's why I focus where I focus, because I think it sits as a root for many other things that will solve, if this is solved.
Yeah, no, that's some really good insights there, actually. And I think we're becoming more aware of this unconscious bias that we have, but because it's unconscious, it's very hard to continuously think about it. But you're right, like when we are exploring data, that's a key one that we need to look at. And I know you at the start you mentioned that there's a lot of opportunity during a recession. It's not all doom and gloom. There's a lot of potential return on investment, potential upsides for us. I'd be interested to just to hear more of your thoughts on what opportunities there are, particularly for procurement teams and businesses in general.
Yeah. I think we don't need to look too much back to see what COVID did, or what COVID created as opportunities for supply chains, especially, to go and be more valued. So I think the same thing will happen with the recession, because suddenly all the organizations of the world look at their cost structures, reprioritize, revisit their strategies, think of the products. And procurement is instrumental to all of that, because you hold the market knowledge, you understand the trends, you understand the leverage that you have or don't, the power, the supplier, or all the analysis that we do truly can create that competitive advantage for companies. So that's what I'm hoping, and that's what I'm expecting will happen for procurement as a function following a recession. It's tough, right? We will be exhausted by the end of it. But then once more, we have that opportunity to shine and become truly business, even beyond business advisors. You are there to guide and shape the strategy of a company. So that's my bet. I think it happened, and I saw it with me and the team that I was in and I led after the recession, because we proved that we can do it. There are brilliant ideas. There is value. You can do it at speed. And the relationship that I built with the stakeholders during that period led me into having a exco position and being accepted at the table, because it was proven. It was not only words and strategy and direction, right? So I think that will happen, and will happen for the high performers and for the ones that can cope with everything that's happening and can really outperform. It will happen naturally. And then for businesses, I think any times of downturns have that opportunity of cleaning up the bad players. And we see that in blockchain, in crypto, we see it in a lot of industries, that businesses that are not built resilient are not surviving tough times. So that naturally happens. So I would expect we will see that more. And then when you have frugality, innovation sparks. That's another dimension, right? When you have suddenly you don't have any more so many resources as you planned, then human brain we are an impressive machine, right? We have our faults, but we have our big pluses. You can get a new idea. How do you solve with less? So then I'm expecting a lot of innovation to come from this scarcity of resources during a recession. So many more ideas coming faster, solving bigger problems. So that's my expectation. So these are the opportunities.
Yeah.
That's where we play, and that's for at the personal level also good to keep an eye on.
Yeah. So avoid burnout, build amazing relationships, and then the one that really rung true there, out frugality comes innovation. I really liked that was cool. That was really nice. And just maybe a couple more slightly less serious questions now, Andra, because going from recession to it's quite a dark topic in some ways, isn't it? For us in the profession and in business. But I'm actually really intrigued as to what is one piece of tech that you could not live without. And this could be related to procurement work. It could be like managing yourself. I'll leave it so open here. It could be something super big. It could be LinkedIn, for example. I don't know. Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear.
I think LinkedIn is growing into my close to a podium because I truly need it for me. Even though I'm techie and geeky, I don't have a ton of addictions to tech. But for sure I have one, and that's my phone. So if there is one that, and now with my business, I can carry it with me, get into calls, have access to information, get my way around, talk with the kids, whatever, engage, be there, be present. So I think that proves a ton of value. So for sure, that's something that I would say. The rest, the landscape changes dramatically when you look at the procure tech landscape, right? 5 years ago, there was nothing. Now, how many? 4,000.
It's mind-blowing.
It is,
right?
and it's happening at scale.
In the last 2 years, I've just been watching
it's happening at scale outside. So when you look at the capabilities of no code, AI and creative industry, gig economy, a lot of marketplaces. So there will be more and more tech that adds value, but will survive less in our for less time, I think, because something else, something better will come along. So that's my expectation of the future. We'll have a more dynamic list, if you want, of favorites.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. That we'll see lots come and go, a lot of innovation, a lot of turnover. Yeah. It's going to be a wild next sort of 2 to 5 years, I imagine, on that. And we'll just end this with maybe the weirdest question I'm going to ask you, because I've not said these words out loud yet. I thought it was a good idea when we wrote it down. So imagine I'm a procurement genie, and I kind of thought Aladdin vibes, but I'm not sure I'm feeling it now. You've got one wish about procurement. What do you want?
To get stronger, in a stronger position following the current crisis. And I think the second would be to learn the lessons that the recent history is giving us. So be in a better position to ride the next unforeseeable big shift that will happen faster. Potentially we'll get another one in this generation. We will be in a better position us as humans. So that would be my wish for procurement.
It feels like there's an event like that every 2 years now or so. I think I saw, and I'll have to try and pull out the stat, for the millennial generation that I sit in, it's almost like every 2 to 3 years there's been like a generation defining event, but it's happened multiples for every decade. It's quite incredible. Andra, like that was amazing. Really enjoyed talking to you, full of knowledge, full of insights. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, really, and good luck in your endeavors. I'm here to cheer and support and to create this amazing community that I truly believe in. So thank you for having me, and thank you for what you're doing. You're great.
Procurement Reimagined is brought to you by Gatekeeper. To find out more about Gatekeeper and how our vendor and contract lifecycle management solution is delivering visibility, control, and compliance to our customers, visit www.gatekeeperhq.com. And then make sure to search for Procurement Reimagined in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else that podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Gatekeeper, thanks for listening.